Usually like in a group at a bar or whatever, and like I'll start to make some sexual innuendos. And then it just usually comes off of, so do you want to fuck?
Welcome back to Other People's Lives. I'm Joe Santagato.
I'm Greg Dybec.
Just want to give a quick shout out to all of our patrons over at patreon.com/OPL show who are supporting the show. When you sign up for our Patreon, you get bonus episodes, and you also get access to a behind the scenes of how me and Greg kind of vet our guests and our thoughts leading up to our episodes. So go check that out.
Yes, super excited for today's episode. I'll be honest, if you have anyone close by listening, you might want to throw some headphones in. If you got some kids, you might want to put them to bed. We're gonna be hearing some stories today because we are speaking to a woman who is a sex addict, has been with over 400 men, I think the email said, and that included friends, husbands, boyfriends. I guess nothing's been off the table. A lot to discuss here, and we've got the guest on the line, so thank you for being on.
Thank you for having me.
And I forgot a key detail in that, and something that was really interesting is that you've been in a wheelchair for 12 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've had a sex addict on in the past. It was a bunch of seasons ago, but really excited to hear this perspective because you're a woman, you are in a wheelchair. I think we're gonna have a ton of questions. Also, based on your email, it seems like you're truly willing to kind of share any story and talk about everything here. So really excited to jump into it. But let's get started with how did you kind of begin to realize and understand that you were addicted to sex?
Well, for a long time, I didn't realize it until people started telling me. I would make a joke or something like that and then be like, but you really are. And so I didn't believe that for quite a while. And then I just started to realize that sex was the number one priority in my life. It didn't matter, like you had said, if somebody was married or if it was my friend's husband or whatever. It didn't matter. Sex was the number one priority.
Did this start before or after you were in a wheelchair? Has this been like your whole life?
Okay, so I used to be really fat as a teenager, and I lost all the weight around 19, and that's kind of when it started.
Okay.
I didn't go into a wheelchair until like 28, and I'm 38 now.
Oh,
26
okay.
to 28, yeah.
So this has been for, this is such a weird phrasing, your whole sexual career. You think that you've been sort of like addicted to sex.
Yeah.
So what was kind of like the first instance? Because when you talk about an addiction and you're talking about something that at some point you can't control, and at some point you have to do it despite the kind of impact or consequences that it may have on your life, on friendships. So what was kind of the first time where you were like, oh wow, like I kind of can't control this, I'm losing control? Or like you even mentioned like a friend's husband, like were those things that kind of happened early on?
No, because I didn't really have a lot of friend groups then. So I was basically young and just newly skinny, and so I loved the attention, and that's what I did.
So obviously, there would be a lot of like guys who are just like, oh man, we just think about sex all day, like blah blah blah. So can you just kind of describe like the distinct difference between being someone who just like enjoys sex very much or has a high sex drive and being like a sex addict? Because I'm assuming at this point in your life you have a better understanding of what it means to be addicted to this, and not just someone who has a high sex drive. Like it's much more than that. So do you know what like the distinct difference is between those things?
When you no longer care about the repercussions, I think.
And now this is something that you actively are right now, that you would consider yourself like today still a sex addict?
Yeah. Because I mean, I still look for hookups on like FetLife and through friends and whatever. Like I'd never met people and I'll still sleep with them.
So when you say like not caring about the repercussions, you know, one thing is, well, before the call we were talking a little bit, and I think it's interesting to bring up. You obviously had listened to the past episode we did with the male sex addict, and I think in that episode he claimed to have slept with, you know, over 1,000 people, and you said that you don't believe that he never caught an STD, because he did say that on the episode. Whereas you, even in the email you sent us, were super open. Like you literally wrote in the email, I've had multiple STDs over the years: chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, hepatitis B. That seems like something you're super willing to share. But that, to me, kind of fits into that category of like, at that point, you know, are you so addicted to this that it's not even bothering you that you are getting STDs, or like that, you know, there could be health repercussions, you know, beyond that?
Well, thankfully, those were all ones that were able to be treated with antibiotics, except for the Hep B, of course. Like, but that cleared up on its own. So, like, there's a chance of it becoming chronic or acute. So, and I'm STD free now, but yeah, I have caught quite a few.
So at this point, you're just not really afraid of any of that, I assume.
So I am, but only as much as like it would cut down on the sex.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're like, well, if I get an STD, then I can't have sex. So like, that's what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. So are you using protection? You're just like, fuck it.
Most of the time, but you know, most of the time isn't every time. So.
Gotcha.
So something I'm really curious about, you know, you said you're 38 now, this addiction and this kind of exploration into sex, and then addiction that came from that started when you were about 19, but you said you ended up in a wheelchair at 28. So I guess to just talk about that, what caused you to have to end up being in a wheelchair?
Okay, so I was born with progressive neuromuscular disease, so it was inevitable.
Oh, it's something you always knew was coming at some point in your life?
Yeah.
That's interesting on its own, to have to kind of live with that reality.
Yeah, my father had it, so.
Did it have any sort of like your sexual experience before and after the wheelchair? Has it like, does this disease have any effect on the sexual experience?
No, thankfully. Because that's pretty much the only joy I get in life now.
All right. Well, thank God for that, I guess.
Well, people would, I mean, that's why it's so interesting, is that there's just so many misconceptions around anyone who's disabled or handicapped when it comes to sex. And we've even spoken to on this show someone who works with disabled people just to help, you know, fulfill sexual fantasies, bring them to orgasm, or just help them explore that, you know, aspect of their lives, because a lot of them, you know, obviously say, you know, this isn't for me, or no one's going to find me attractive, or I won't have sex. So it's interesting just knowing the average person walking around that may see someone handicapped and just think like, oh, their sex life can't be great, or maybe they're not having sex, or have they found someone who still finds them attractive? And now here you are in a wheelchair for the past 10 years, and you are just having sex all the time.
Fuck it. Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, like, you know, more than the average person.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So you kind of immediately just kill, you know, that stereotype and that misconception that a lot of people would have. And is that something that, like, I guess, how does that work? Like, what was the difference from, you know, the last day you weren't in a wheelchair to the day that, you know, now you're in a wheelchair for the rest of your life? Like, you obviously had this addiction at this time. So is it something, did you have to change anything in your life to still kind of feed this addiction, to still find people to have sex with, or was it just a seamless enough transition?
Oh, no, I had to be much more blatant, much more aggressive, I guess, with the come-ons. Because it's way, like you said, there's this big misconception with people in a wheelchair. And a lot of people have asked me some really rude questions like how I can go to the bathroom. And I'm like you do by myself. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And I mean, so like people automatically don't think I'm capable or don't think I would want to. So yeah, I've had to become much more blatant with my come-ons.
So like your typical like night out. I mean, it's COVID, but like your typical night out, like you're very like forward, being like, listen.
Oh yeah.
So how do you like go about approaching someone? Like, how forward are we talking?
Well, like, so usually like in a group at a bar or whatever, and like I'll start to make some sexual innuendos. And then it just usually comes off of, so do you want to fuck?
How do guys usually respond to that? Because I feel like I'd be like, what? Like, is this a trick? Like, what's going on?
So I have gotten quite a few no's, and that's a hard ego, you know. But usually it's just sure.
Wow. All right.
Now, do you think it's like do you think it's guys trying to, check something off their list, like, oh, this girl in a wheelchair, I'm curious, or is there like a fetish aspect to it, or do you not even give a shit because you just want to have sex?
Well, I mean, I'm not saying that it's not a bucket list check off, but because I've had male and females tell me that you're on my bucket list, and but I really don't care.
Yeah, no, I mean, if it's the same end result, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, if that's actually going to work in my favor one time, then sure, go for it.
So how far does this addiction go to the point where it's like, is there anyone that you're like, fucking no? Or is it mostly like anyone who approaches you with the idea of like, we should have sex, are you like usually down? Or do you have, because I think also last time when we had the conversation with the sex addict previously on a different episode, he went into how he was like, yeah, I really don't care who it is. Like, whoever's down, like, I'll just do it. Like, is there sort of like any sort of vetting system that you have for yourself? Or is this kind of just like, I'm just trying to get out there and go?
Oh, yeah, no. I do completely have standards, and they're mostly looks.
Gotcha.
Like a lot of people, to be fair. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, like, sex is just a physical experience to me, and if you're just having sex with somebody, then you want to be attracted to them.
So,
no, totally.
Can you tell us about this? Because you mentioned your friends' husbands. When something like that happens, obviously, I mean, especially like the way that you're talking about it, like sort of like, very nonchalantly, is it just because you just hold sex in a higher regard than your friendship with your friend? Or like, what is the reason behind you being like, I just, I'm still going to go out of my way to do this?
So that probably goes deeper on the, like, I have issues problem of like, I have little self-esteem because of the wheelchair, because of being fat, younger. It's a whole bunch of different reasons, but it's some validation, I guess, when I sleep with random people, that they find me that attractive to fuck off whatever they're doing to be with me.
Okay.
Yeah. No, and I mean, definitely. And like in that instance, like, so this was like was this a close friend whose husband you ended up sleeping with while they were still married?
I've slept with so many numerous married men. Some of them have been my friends' husbands. Some of them I had permission for. Some of them I didn't. Like I said, I'd never really been too much on the friendship thing. A lot of girls can't handle me being me. They feel threatened or feel like I'm, gonna try to take their own man, which is weird because, like, if they're really my friends, then I would never.
Okay, so it's kind of like, like friends in the sense that you associate with them, but maybe not like, it's not like your best friend growing up that you like would go out of your way to sleep with their husband just for the thrill of it.
Right.
Okay.
Like, if I truly love a friend, then I'm never gonna do anything to hurt her.
But even seeing have there been instances, because we're talking about an addiction, so there still has to be a darker side to this. Like, have there been instances where it's hurt you, maybe that you've hurt other people? Like if you've seen kind of the consequences of sleeping with, someone's husband without their permission, for example?
Okay, so I've dealt with a lot of different addictions in my life. I mean, at one point I was using a lot of meth. At one point I was using a lot of heroin. And yes, that absolutely added to the random experiences. But even in my depths of addiction, like there's still some boundaries you don't cross.
Yeah. And is it something that you're looking to break? Like you said, like if you've had a meth addiction, and I'm assuming that's something that you don't have anymore.
Yeah, correct.
So with the sex addiction, is that something that you kind of go out of your way to, try to make progress, to try to break this addiction, to, try to gain back control in a sense where, I'm assuming sex consumes your thoughts most of the time. It's something that you're seeking every time you go out. So are you looking to break that addiction at all, or not at this time?
No, not at all. I don't see any point to.
Okay. Well, all right. I was gonna say at any point do you feel like, but you're like, nah, fuck that. I just, I guess, I mean.
Okay, so I have been in relationships, like in monogamous relationships, and I had no problem being monogamous in those relationships. But they were very few, far between, and didn't last long.
Do you think you'd ever be able to find one that works long term? Because I guess if sex is the addiction and you are able to be monogamous, is it just that person you're with would just need to be on your level in terms of, volume of sex and, everything that you kind of require?
Absolutely.
How often are you having sex?
Well, before COVID, it was at least 5 or 6 times a week, usually with different people. There's a few regulars, but a lot of them were random encounters.
That's almost every day of a week. Wow.
Ton of sex.
And is that do you schedule in the sense of okay, Monday, check, I had sex, Tuesday I had sex, or could 5 guys be in one day to make up for it at the end of a week?
Well, so usually I try to schedule because you don't want the overlap, but I have done 4 different guys in a matter of 24 hours. So
that's a full day right there. That's a full day. 24 hours, 4 guys. Wow. Wow. Okay.
I am curious.
I want to know, how does someone become a regular? Because it sounds because if what you're explaining is you have the sex addiction. And correct me if I'm wrong. Would you rather have sex with a quote unquote regular, or do you get some sort of, thrill added on when it's a brand new person?
Okay, so there's a little bit of the thrill with a new person, but only if they look really good. With the regular, you have the, continued sex with them, so usually the sex is better.
Right.
Yeah, so usually I would rather go for a regular because I know the sex is going to be good.
Okay.
I guess that's important, and that I like that question, Joe, because it's not, we also don't want to paint you as, someone who just is out there being super unsafe all the time, or just it has to be a new guy every day, or it has to be as many guys as possible in one day, and there's zero standards, and there's this thrill of going out and meeting new people. It's like you said, if there's a regular, if there's someone you're comfortable with, if there's someone you're attracted to, it's just that you want sex all the time.
Yeah.
So how have you been getting by with, the pandemic?
It's been rough.
It sounds like it. I feel like. Yeah. So, but how? Are you just losing your mind right now? Because when I think of addiction, and then you think of withdrawal from something that you're constantly feeding yourself, is there any sort of side effects in that regard, or are you just going out and meeting people anyway?
No, it's been severely less, and there are side effects, and my general state of mind is a lot lower. You know what I mean? Because it kind of works as, I guess, a mood stabilizer, a kind of dopamine addiction almost. to where it's sex is happy. So without that, it's a lot lower.
Yeah, and you mentioned too, it's like validation for you, I guess, in a sense. And you still feel that way, like even after having sex with, I think, is that accurate what you said in the email? Like for over 400 plus people for sure.
Oh, that's the low end. Like that's just a guesstimate. When I was like 21, that was the first and last time I ever made a list of the people I had slept with, and that was already at 50. So
Gotcha.
that's a very low estimate.
Yeah, no, okay. Especially if it's 5 or 6 a week. Yeah, someone out there can do the math. But
I don't want to.
No, but is that still like every time you have sex now? Like, is that you still get that feeling of validation? Like it's because you did mention, like, I guess with a lower self-esteem or still, thinking about the fact like I'm in a wheelchair and maybe some people won't find me attractive. Like every time you have sex, it's that dopamine, but it's also still that kind of validation to yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting. And one question I have is an honest question that I guess, like, you said you go out to a bar, right? And you said that basically ever since you were in the wheelchair, you just had to be more straightforward and more aggressive with the men that you want to sleep with. So does that also translate into the bedroom? Because I would imagine, are there a lot of guys who kind of say yes, then they end up at home with you? And do you kind of have to guide them? Do they like not know like how to handle this if they've never been with someone in a wheelchair before? And do you find that you've had to just be more aggressive when it comes to kind of the sex itself and like guiding them?
No, with the sex itself, I pretty much just start sucking their dick and it goes all normal from there.
Pretty standard stuff, I guess.
Okay, I love how I just tried to like form that question perfectly and just that's a very honest answer. There you go. Yeah, I mean, that's universal. It's definitely
that was pretty much the go.
Yeah. It's so funny that you tried to like put together this very like clean way of asking that question. She's like, yeah, I just sucked her dick.
No, but I mean, yeah, I guess I'm overthinking it, to be honest. So I guess it really is
I think that's a lot of people's
sometimes.
questions too, but it's it could come off as insensitive if you ask someone like, logistically how yeah. So I mean, I understand the reasoning for the question. I just thought it was funny.
Yes, so I just can't stand up. I can do everything else.
Right.
Right.
So do your I know we keep saying friends and you keep saying like I'm not really about friendships, but like do the people in your life, whether it be family, any friends that you do have, like do they know about this? It seems like, and from what I've gathered, like you're very forward and open about this, at all times, it seems. Okay. And that's just you. That's just how people know you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to like picture that because like it's funny because you were mentioning before how there's some people who are intimidated because they're like afraid that you're gonna be like, well, I'm gonna try and fuck your husband or fuck your boyfriend or like anyone that you bring here, like I'm gonna try to fuck. And I wonder what that kind of like does to the dynamic. Like, do you feel like it's harder to make friends because you're so out and open about it?
Somewhat, yeah. Most people that get to know me at all know that I do have some standards or limitations to how far I'll go if I really consider you a friend. So it's not too much of an issue with my real friends.
Gotcha. Wow.
But then again, I've also fucked most of my friends, so.
Okay. So
and their husbands or wives, like it's usually a threesome or whatever.
I was going to say, you did mention that some people give you permission.
Yeah.
So you find yourself in that position a lot where it's like, all right, we're doing this. Like we're going to have a threesome and spice things up. And then they just call you up on the phone and you show up.
Yeah. Or they'll come over or whatever. But like I lost my virginity in a threesome. So I'm pretty used to them.
That is an electric start.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just never really had that emotional connection to sex. Like, it's always been a physical thing.
Do you yearn for that, or you're like, fuck it?
I really don't, just because of this. At this point in my life, like, nobody really wants to make a hoe a housewife. Like,
And you're just owning that position. Like, you're just like, someone's got to do it. So I'm out here doing
it
it.
is what it is.
Wow.
Are there still things you seek, like when it comes to sex and obviously like an addiction for you or something that you're kind of purely viewing as physical? Like, are there still things you want to check off your list, or do you feel like you've like experienced it all at this point?
Oh, wow. So I haven't got into a lot of the like fetishes and kinks and things like that. And I'm more open to what people are into, but I don't know. I just really haven't gone into like my kind of checkoff list. I like pretty people, so I tend to gravitate towards them.
It's a good goal to have. Sleep with pretty people. And is there, this could be interesting for this topic, and we always like to give the guests the opportunity before we wrap up. Like, anything you personally would want to say to anyone listening who is also experiencing sex addiction or thinks that they might be?
So I feel like as long as it's not detrimental to your lifestyle, as in you're missing family events or important events with your friends, then as long as you're being safe, which I stress, that it's go for it.
Yeah, and I guess that's like what's interesting with you is like there's nothing you want to change right now, right? You've made that clear.
I wish I would have been a little more selective in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But, it is what it is.
Right. So it's like you still feel, despite this addiction, that you have a balance. Like, do you still feel like you're in control and it's not detrimental to your life?
No, that was my advice to other people. I wish I could follow that advice. No, I have messed up quite a few things in my life. A few relationships, obviously the STDs, a few friendships. Like, I have made bad decisions. And at the time I didn't care. And then, of course, afterwards I did.
Mm.
Wow. All right. Well, this has been very interesting. And I think it's, not a perspective I was like planning to hear about. We were like, yeah, this is what it is. And I don't really care to, kind of fix it or try to get some counseling. You're just kind of riding it out. No pun intended. Just like, you know what I mean? Just kind of going for it, which is,
I can't believe you just said that.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, oh. All right. So I didn't even realize what I said.
What did you think it was?
Like, I mean, we're talking about sex. That's what I was.
Oh.
But yeah, so I like I said, I wasn't expecting that at all. But I mean, it is a very interesting story. I mean, it's not every day that you hear, this perspective from this, especially from the women's side. I mean, at least in my, experience, obviously I know that women can be sex addicts, but, the stories I've heard, it's mostly been men. So it is, I think, important to get the story out there from the women's perspective too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, women like sex just as much as men. Usually men just have a lower standard for random encounters because there's that stigma with women of like, if you slept with a bunch of guys, you're no good.
Right. Yeah. Double standards. They're stupid.
Yeah. So do you guys have any questions that you were, thought were taboo or whatever for me?
I don't really have any, taboo questions. I mean, I feel like, I really don't. I mean, I feel like there was gonna be like coming into this, but I mean, just the way that you're talking and very open about everything, I feel like all my questions were answered. So I appreciate the openness and honesty.
Yeah, no, totally. I think I kind of asked mine before in terms of like, do guys like almost freeze up of like, what's my first move if I've never been with someone in a wheelchair? But we got that answer, which was just suck on the dick. So yeah, I got nothing else. But that's cool that you're open to to answering that. Obviously knowing, again, like we said before, just the misconceptions around anyone who's handicapped, and especially when you throw sex into the mix. But like Joe said, based on your answers and your enjoyment of sex, like I think we got the gist of it. But yeah, no, we appreciate it.
All right, thank you so much for coming on.
At this point, if you guys aren't using Honey while you online shop, you are literally throwing money down the toilet. Not trying to be mean, just being honest. Honey is the free shopping tool that scours the internet for promo codes and applies the best ones that it finds right to your cart. And they support over 30,000 online stores, from tech to clothing to food delivery. At this point, I use Honey for so many items, but most recently, I actually needed a new pair of headphones for the show, and at checkout, Honey automatically saved me about $22 with a coupon that it found. Again, you don't do any work, it just appears in your cart. So you can get Honey for free at joinhoney.com/OPL. Seriously, you are straight up missing out on free savings if you're not using Honey. That's joinhoney.com/OPL, completely free. Start saving. There are hundreds of companies out there claiming to compare auto and home insurance rates, but there's only one who actually does it. Get better insurance with Gabi. And I know because I've done it. Gabi helped me find more affordable and better home insurance. It's free. They only show policies that are the same or better than your current coverage, which is amazing because there's no wasted time. And it's super quick, seamless process because you actually log in using your current insurance information and get shown a bunch of quotes and policies. And Gabi customers save $961 per year on average. That's no joke. Serious savings, and they'll never sell your info, so no annoying spam or robocalls because we all have enough of those. And put your policy to the test like I did. Get better insurance with Gabi. It's totally free to check out. There's no obligation. Go to gabi.com/OPL. That's gabi.com/OPL. gabi.com/OPL. Totally free, no obligation, worth checking it out. See how much money you can save on home or auto insurance.
Well, interesting stuff. I just want to say, I made a comment back there that I didn't realize what I was saying, and that could be insensitive, but I didn't mean it in that way.
I feel worse. You said,
well, yeah, because that's where it could be insensitive. If I said so, what did I say?
You're
just riding it out.
You're just riding it out.
I meant like riding, like sex riding.
Right, and I'm thinking
riding.
like
it's a double entendre. Yeah, it's a double entendre. But like I didn't realize that, so that's why when you said it, then I was like, oh god, like I just started sweating. Like literally, I have sweat beads down my head.
Yeah,
but
less secure podcasters would cut that part out. But we're leaving it.
Yeah, because I didn't mean it in that way. Obviously, like it's an expression. Like you're just riding it out. Like fuck it, I'm doing this. I also just like, if you are going through some sort of addiction, I mean, she has her opinion. She's her own person. She can do whatever the hell she wants with her life, with her body. Obviously, yes, she should do that. But if there is anyone out there who is struggling with addiction, I tend to lean towards, if you want to get some help and talk to somebody, or at least consult with somebody. I mean, you even heard her. She has some regrets about certain things that have happened in her life, and I think we heard it from the last person we interviewed who had the sex addiction, who had some regrets. So just something to think about. I wouldn't really like be able to sleep if I was just like, yeah, just fucking go for it, like indulge in your addiction.
Yeah,
but
I wanted to bring that up too, and I'm glad, because there's like, you realize when you have a conversation like that, like we're giggly and like we're having fun, but there's such, there's something so refreshing, and there's sort of like a freedom when you have these kind of conversations, when someone is being so open and honest, and it just like it makes you smile, because it's like we are talking about taboo things that you're just not supposed to talk about, that or that people don't talk about in everyday life. So like, yes, it definitely comes across like it's easygoing and it's funny in a sense, but again, this is an addiction, like you said, and it's like, nothing in this episode is condoning any of those actions. Those are her actions, but it's just that real honest look of like, I mean, she had some decent advice, but then she even admitted, she has a hard time following her own advice, like a lot of us. So, to get that glimpse of, that's where she's at, and maybe would she do some things differently? Yeah, but again, it's not that we're condoning it, but really, again, like, interesting perspective from her, and just, yet another guest that is just so open, like shamelessly open and honest about everything, sex, STDs, like it doesn't matter. She was ready to take on any taboo questions. So she's
I don't know that I even had any. I was just kind of caught off guard by the openness to be like, I had Hep B. I was like, damn, dude.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the biggest thing.
I don't even really know what that is, to be honest with you.
It's not good. That's all I know.
I
don't know the letters.
I don't either.
The
There's
distinction,
Hep C,
but yeah.
I don't know, but it's a lot.
But obviously it's such an interesting addiction, like when you look at addictions, because I think we said this on the last episode we did a long time ago, where it's you're not, I think you said, like you're not, it's not like we all go out and like hit a little meth like every day, but like some of us take it too far. Like most of us at some point will have sex. Like it's an act that we do. It's an act that a lot of us will do a lot or all the time, and we do crave it. But then to cross over that kind of threshold into like true addiction, where you totally lose control and you lose balance, and it could affect things like your job, your life, your friendships. It's interesting because like it still is an action that so many of us have experienced and continue to experience.
And just to like
alcohol, I guess,
frame it in a different way is if you are an alcoholic, you can recognize that and be like, I need to get better, and just like quit eventually. Either you like wean yourself off, or you go cold turkey and you just don't have a drink. Like people are sober for 10 years. But when you're addicted to sex, sometimes it's part of a relationship on an emotional level. If you want to have kids, you have to have sex. That's how that works. And it's like you almost have to slightly indulge in this. You know what I mean? It would be like having a water addiction. Like you need water. Like you can't overdo it. I think you die. But like you can't overdo it, but it's like you need water, so you need to have it in moderation, which is a very hard thing to do, especially for people who have an addictive personality or are addicted to a certain substance or whatever act. And I mean,
it's like technology almost, like behavioral addiction, which is new, but it's like you can literally be addicted to like checking your email, but like if you want a productive career, odds are you're gonna have to check your email at some point. So like you're saying,
exactly.
Like, you kind of still have to dabble in that thing that you are or were addicted to. But really interesting. I mean, one of the most open guests for sure.
Yes, for certain. For anyone out there that wants to come on the show, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Go to oplshow.com, fill out the contact form, send us an email, and if it works, then we'll schedule something out.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram at OPL Podcast. Like Joe said in the beginning, become a patron at patreon.com/OPL Show. You get weekly bonus episodes, behind the scenes, and we also do interviews like this one that will never appear on this main channel that you can get as bonus episodes on the Patreon. So check that out, and leave a rating and review on iTunes if that's your thing.
Yep, that is all. See you guys next time.